Today we're making my sour cream chocolate cake with dark chocolate sauce. The chocolate sponge is soft, fluffy and moist, and the dark chocolate sauce is rich, creamy and glossy. This is a super easy dessert to make, and it goes perfectly with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. It's a guaranteed crowd pleaser and ideal for chocolate lovers. Here's how we make it. First we need to bloom the cocoa powder. To do this we're going to add 100 grams of Dutch processed cocoa powder into a jug with 2 teaspoons of instant coffee and 200 grams of boiling water. We're going to whisk this to make a smooth paste, then set it to one side. Blooming cocoa powder in the hot water releases more flavour into the cake batter, and also helps incorporate it in more evenly and without any dry spots. Once it's been mixed into a smooth paste, we're going to set it to one side so that it can cool slightly before we use it. Then it's on to the actual cake batter. So we're going to add 350 grams of plain flour into a large bowl, with 200 grams of dark brown sugar, 275 grams of caster sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of table salt, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda. Then we're going to whisk the dry ingredients together until they're well combined without any lumps. Sometimes brown sugar can be a bit lumpy, so if there are any lumps, just break them up with your fingers. Next we're going to whisk the wet ingredients together in a separate bowl. So we've got 275 grams of room temperature sour cream, 175 grams of vegetable oil, 4 large eggs that are also at room temperature, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract or paste. Then once all the ingredients are in a bowl, we're going to whisk them together until smooth. Now it's just a case of adding the wet ingredients and the bloomed cocoa to the flour, then whisking by hand to make a smooth batter. Make sure not to over whisk the batter though, as this can make the cake tough. It just wants to be well combined. Once the batter's been mixed, I like to give the bowl a quick scrape down with a spatula to make sure there's no streaks of flour. Your cake batter should look something like this. So as soon as the batter's been mixed, we're going to tip it into a lined 9 by 13 inch baking tin. The bicarb in the batter will start to react straight away, so we need to get it in the oven as soon as possible. Speaking of ovens, mine's been preheated to 170 degrees Celsius or 338 degrees Fahrenheit. So now that the batter's in the tin, we're going to bake it for between 50 minutes and an hour until a skewer inserted into the middle comes out clean. Make sure to test the cake in a couple of different spots. Then once it's ready, sit the tin on a wire cooling rack and let the cake cool completely. Then in the meantime we can make the chocolate sauce. So here I've got 300 grams of 72% dark chocolate, and we just need to chop it into small pieces. The chocolate's added into the cream off the heat, so it's important that it's chopped small so it melts properly. Once the chocolate's chopped, we can set it to one side. Next we're going to warm 75 grams of golden syrup with 400 grams of double cream, 300 grams of whole milk, 25 grams of Dutch processed cocoa powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. We're going to warm this over a medium-low heat until the cream's steaming hot, whisking to dissolve the cocoa powder. Make sure not to let the cream boil though. Once the cream's hot, we're going to take the pan off the heat, then add in the chopped dark chocolate and 50 grams of unsalted butter. We're going to let this stand for 1 minute, then whisk to make a smooth sauce. The sauce will be smooth and glossy and thick enough to coat the back of a spoon. You can make this sauce several days in advance and then reheat it just before serving, either on the stove or in a microwave. So now that the cake's completely cool, we can take it out of the tin and cut it into pieces. I find that a sharp serrated knife works best here. I also like to remove the baking parchment now as well. So I like to cut my cake into 12 portions, but feel free to cut yours into more or less if you prefer. And because we bake the batter in a deep tin, each portion gets a big slab of cake. So to serve the cake, I like to microwave a portion for 30 seconds or so until it's warm. If your sauce has been chilled in the fridge, you can microwave the cake and sauce together, but as mine's warm, I'm just going to tip it straight into a jug. Then I'm going to top the warm cake with a scoop of vanilla ice cream and plenty of the chocolate sauce. Seriously, don't be shy with the sauce. If you fancy making your own vanilla ice cream, I'll leave the link for my recipe in the video description. And that's how to make my sour cream chocolate cake with dark chocolate sauce. The full written recipe can be found on my blog saltbuttersmoke.com. And if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another recipe.